All right. I'm going to share my screen with you, and we're going to go through a slide deck on PSAT. But specifically, we're going to look at just a quick overview of reading and writing. I will also attach the math slide deck, but for the purpose of this presentation, we're going to stick with my specialty, which is reading with text evidence and writing. Let's start with evidence-based reading. You should expect a variety of passages. 1 U.S. world literature passage, 2 history passages, and 2 science passages. Possible challenges include that it's a 65-minute reading test, so you have to read only what you need. In terms of navigating the passages, you're looking for line references, chronology, and lead words. Line references, and you'll recognize this, are like in line 22, blah, 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 blah. And chronology is where it says something like, the second thing that happened was that. You're selecting the best answer. Your job is to use the text to make a decision about keeping or eliminating answer choices. If there's one strong possibility, select it and move on. If there are 2 strong possibilities, then reread. If there are 2 maybes, then guess. And if there are 3 maybes, then you need to choose your letter of the day. 4 things I think you should know. POOD in this presentation stands for Preferred Order of Difficulty. LOTD stands for Letter of the Day, which you just saw in this last slide. 3 maybes, letter of the day. Letter of the day is not supposed to change up. So you wake up, you say, I feel like C is the correct answer today for those questions that you really, 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 really do not know. Like you've tried, you've done 5 up, 5 down, every strategy you can think of. And you really don't know. You go in and you choose the same letter for each of those questions. If you vary the letters that you choose for questions that you do not know, you have a greater chance of getting more wrong. That means if you go in with the letter C for the day, you have a greater chance of guessing and getting it right if you stayed consistent. That's why it's important to have a letter of the day. PO is process of elimination. RTFQ means read the full question, which is fabulous advice for any test taker. In the math section, you will write out all your steps. You don't do the work in your head. You track your thinking, and you must do the same thing on the reading test. Mark your windows, underline relevant lines, and physically mark out answers when you're going through the process of elimination. The SAT contains one 65-minute reading test composed of 52 multiple choice questions, so pacing is key. Each passage has 10 to 11 questions and is about 600 words in length. There are 2 history passages, 2 science passages, and 1 U.S. literature passage. One of these passages will contain charts or graphs, and it's important to look at those if they exist. And each question has 4 answer choices. This is the first section of the SAT, so staying focused while reading these passages is often difficult. Your purpose, though, when you read the SAT is different from your purpose when you're reading in school or at home. When you're reading at home, you're reading for pleasure. When you read in school, you're hoping to learn something. And when you read for the SAT, you are just looking for information so that you can answer a question about the passage. Therefore, it's important that you first go to the questions and then go back and read only what you need. But not all passages are created equal. And based on your preferred order of difficulty, you might decide to complete them in a different order than that in which they are presented. Consider the following. Some passages are more difficult than others. Some questions are more difficult than others. And it's all going to be based on what you know yourself that you're capable of or that you struggle with. So for you, some questions are going to be, oh, I've got that. And other questions are you constantly struggle with. Some reading passages, I mean, you may get U.S. history, but you may struggle with science. And this is all about you. And it's about you going through and saying, here's the passage I'm going to do first, and here are the type of questions that I'm going to focus on first and get right. But it's important to know how the reading passages and questions are structured. There are line references, chronology, and lead words. And line references are again where they say in line 22, blah, 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 blah. And chronology is again where they say the second thing that happened was blah. Here's the basic approach. You read the blurb, you select and understand the question, then you go back into the text, you read only what you need. Then you predict in your brain what the correct answer is going to be. Then you do the process of elimination where you look for wrong answers instead of right answers. You cross out the answer choices that you're eliminating. You put like a little squiggly by the maybes, and then you put a check mark by the best answer choice. That's it. But don't be fooled because incorrect answers frequently contain the following. 1, information not mentioned in the passage at all. 2, mostly right, but slightly wrong. It only takes one word or phrase not mentioned in the passage to doom an answer choice. And then, of course, extreme language that goes beyond what's stated in the passage. And this is the difference between someone having a meh day and an absolutely fantastic day of change. This section of the SAT is similar to an open book test. The answers are all in the passage. So if you're seeing any extreme language, it's not the right answer choice. Unfortunately, your opinion does not matter. The test makers don't care about your opinion. They only care that you can use what's written to support a concrete answer. So make sure that when you predict the answer, you're using what's actually written, not just what makes sense based on what you read. There are 4 types of questions. First, they're specific. And if they say go to line 10, you're going to read 5 up and 5 down. So you'll start at line 5 and you'll read to line 15. So if they say look at line 10, you'll start at line 5 and you'll read all the way through to 15. These stems will lead you to the approximate location of the answer. So don't get caught up in the specific details when reading the passage. Second, they're general questions. For these, there is also a strategy. You read the introductory paragraph, the topic sentence of each body paragraph, and then the concluding paragraph when answering these types of questions. The 4th type of question is a little more complicated, but not the worst. It's a specific paired. So it has to do with 2 passages that you've read, and that, you answer those second to last. You answer those after you've answered the easy questions for both passages, and then you're kind of able to do process of elimination to determine which one is the best choice. And then the worst, oh my goodness, general paired. These are a beast. You do these types of questions last. They're not difficult, but they do take more time than the others. These are the ones where they ask you things like the main idea that both authors are conveying to their audience, or the ones where they say both authors would agree with what opinion. Those are the ones that you really need to have had exposure to both texts prior to answering. Let's talk about the writing and language portion of the SAT. The writing and language test gives 35 minutes to answer 44 questions. There are 4 passages with 11 questions each, and one of the passages may feature a figure, like a chart or graph. These questions cover a wide range of topics, nearly 40 on both grammar and style. These passages are broken into 4 topic categories: careers, history, humanities, and science. There is no order of difficulty in the placement of the passages or the questions, so this one is different. This connection of proofreading versus editing is unfamiliar with what we teach in middle school. However, the truth is that a proofreader looks for errors. And on the SAT, a proofreader should look for mistakes in grammar, punctuation, and English usage. There's no questions, just answer choices. All should be attacked with what's changing in the answer choices. If it's apostrophes, it's apostrophes, commas, commas. An editor, however, in this sense, reviews and improves the writing. On the SAT, an editor should look for ways to improve the continuity and precision of the writing. Specific questions, and they're usually long. You're still thinking about what's changing, but it's secondary to the actual question. Your ear is a valuable tool, but trusting your ear completely won't get you all the points you want. Checking what's changing in the answer choices can reveal mistakes that you might not have otherwise seen or heard. For example, you wrote the material, but you're not done. Every author still has to make a few more choices about their book. The word there sounds the same regardless. However, the underlined word is referring to each author. So it's each one, each author. It's singular. And that makes the answer C, his or her book, not their book, because we're talking about a singular author. Now, let's talk about the no change option. Some pick this too much. Some don't pick it enough. This option is correct about 1/4 of the time. Follow this approach. Check what's changing in the answer choices. Identify the error, and then use process of elimination. If you've eliminated the other 3 answer choices, then pick no change and move on. The game plan for the writing section is finish the test. If a question seems time-consuming, guess and move on. Make the obvious preferred order of difficulty choice. Some questions take 30 seconds, while some can take 2 to 3 minutes. The longer ones are easy to spot, so do the questions that take a shorter amount of time first. You can always go back to the others. Now let's talk punctuation. You need to know the difference between stop, half stop, and go punctuation. Know the 4 situations to use a comma. Know the 2 situations to use an apostrophe. First, know the 4 situations to use a comma. If you can't cite one of the 4 following reasons to use a comma, then don't use one. Use it with either stop, like fanboys, go, every time it's on the list, or before and after unnecessary information. Third, know the 2 situations to use an apostrophe. If you can't cite one of the following reasons for an apostrophe, then don't use one. It's either owning something or it's connecting 2 words together. Let's talk about the difference between stop and go. Stop is like a period, a semicolon, a comma plus a fanboy, a question mark, or an explanation. They can only leak complete ideas. A half stop would be a colon before a list and then a long dash. Draw a vertical line at the proposed punctuation in the question or in the answer choices. Determine whether you have 2 complete ideas, a complete and incomplete idea, or 2 incomplete ideas. For example, for many years, veterinarians have provided a series of basic services for household pets, from basic checkups and shots to neutering and defanging. From basic checkups and shots to neutering and defanging is not a complete sentence. It's an incomplete sentence. And we know that option C cannot be correct because it uses a semicolon, and a semicolon connects 2 complete thoughts. We know that A cannot be correct because we know we need to fix something, because you can't just have an incomplete sentence sitting there hanging by itself. And we know that it cannot be D because there's nothing to connect it. So, the best answer choice is the dash, which, by the way, the dash is a very sketch type of punctuation. Basically, it can go just about anywhere and do just about anything. So if you can eliminate the other answer choices and you come to that one and you're not sure what the rule is, that one's pretty free-spirited. Let's talk about words now. The key here is consistency. The correct choice is consistent with the rest of the sentence in the passage. Let the non-underlined portions guide you to your choice of verbs. Verbs, nouns, and pronouns should agree with the sentences and passages. For example, the history of the English language is a curious one. Historians of the language identifies 3 categories: Old English, Middle English, and Modern English. So you look at the underlined word. What does identifies refer back to? The language identifies or historians identifies? In this case, you're right. It's historians. And they identify with 3 categories: Old English, Middle English, and Modern English. So they tried to trick you by making you think that it's a plural situation. But this is obviously a moment where you realize that your ear doesn't support your logic. Another idea you need to consider is precision. The correct choice features words and phrases that are as precise as possible. Once you are sure that your word or phrase is consistent with the non-underlined portions, make the word or phrase as precise as you can without extra words. And make sure that the writing communicates specific ideas and events. For example, in fact, it comes from one of them, the Angles, from the modern-day Denmark, whose England became England and England. It. What is it? It comes from one of them. One of who? What are you talking about? The correct answer is B. The name English comes from one of those tribes, the Angles. If you look at option A, we know that it's too vague to have no change. And we also know that's only right 1/4 of the time. Option C, in fact, English as a name comes from one of them. We still don't know what them it means. And option D, the name English is a gift given by one of them. Who is them? We still are not specific. So the correct answer choice is going to be concise, but also specific. Finally, you're going to think of concision. The correct answer, free of any errors, will be the most concise or small. Once you've eliminated all the grammatical errors, pick the shortest remaining answer. You want the answer that does the most work, but in the fewest words. There was a famous person that once said, if people talk a lot, they know very little. And in this situation, it's quite true. For example, Middle English is a different story as it bears a closer resemblance to the language that you are reading right now. Now remember, we're looking at the underlined word, closer. Middle English is a different story as it bears a closer resemblance. Okay. Let's skip no change for right now, although you know that's the right answer. Let's look at option B, and then we'll look at C, and then we'll look at D, and I'll just read through it and replace it, and you can just listen to the change. Does it really matter? Middle English is a different story as it bears a very much closer resemblance. Okay, option C. Middle English is a different story as it bears an altogether closer and nearer resemblance. Closer and nearer are the same word, basically. Okay, option D. Middle English is a different story as it bears a much more closer. Oh, goodness. We don't need all of those words. This is a no change situation. And I wanted to show you one that was, 1 in 4th chance, but sometimes it does exist. No change. So remember this order. Is it consistent? Is it precise? Is it concise? Then choose that answer. General test strategies include POOD, personal order of difficulty, or preferred order of difficulty. Process of elimination, or PO. Read the full question, RTFQ. And don't forget your letter of the day. After you've RTFQ'd, discovered that PO does not eliminate any choices, and your POOD says this is difficult, use LOTD. Remember to guess on any questions that you do not know how to solve or have time to solve. Pacing on a timed test is extremely important. Never leave an answer blank. Commit, don't omit. When guessing, make sure you use the same letter of your letter of the day to increase the odds of getting them right. Prepare before test day by consistently practicing on these ideas. You can do at least half an hour of the SAT each day. My favorite is Khan Academy. Oh, this is amazing. You can go on there and you can just practice. You can practice quotation marks. You can practice parentheses, all sorts of grammatical things. Totally fun. They give videos too, and they teach you things. So if it's easy, it's easy. But if you find an area you're struggling, you can go in there and watch a video. You can go to collegeboard.org, and then of course there's daily practice on the new SAT app. Materials were adopted from the following sources: collegeboard.org, Princeton Review, Prep Scholar, and Danae Taylor here in GISD, who is fabulous and provided this to me. And as your PSAT specialist, It's time for me to sign off. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you have a wonderful evening, and I hope you learned something from this. Again, you can find the math slide deck attached to this slide deck as well. And I hope that it helps you perform your best and achieve greatness.